All right, another week of Tommy and Paulie's big fight forecast. You know what? This week we got a bunch of fights. It's a busy boxing weekend. We're going to be looking at some of the lines and checking out some odds and options that me and Tommy like for gambling odds. Remember that everything we say on the show, none of it is actually betting or investment advice. It's everything we say is strictly for entertainment and recreational purposes. But me and Tommy like to have some recreational fun with it when it comes to checking out boxing odds and checking out the numbers, and especially on a week like this where it's a very busy boxing weekend, Tommy. This the schedule runs with the various cards all over the world. We got the Jake Paul card and various fights on that undercard. We have I think Friday we have Mbili versus Sulecki as well. Mbili is a guy who obviously has been making the rounds in the super middleweight division. He's exciting. I think he's a little bit limited, but he's an exciting pressure guy in the super middleweight division. And
Yeah.
Sulecki's always a crafty guy. So I guess we'll start with that, and then we'll move into the Jake Paul card, right?
All right. Yeah, yeah. So
And
what
by
that
the way,
first one
that's
is
my co-host Tommy Rayno, and I'm Paulie Malignaggi. We got to make our proper introductions for everybody, as we're still a new show here at Big Fight Forecast, and we want everybody to know us and get to know us. Subscribe, hit that subscribe buttons, guys, so that you can be up to date on all our conversations and chats here when there are fights on the schedule.
on the horizon. So yeah, super middleweights. That's on ESPN Plus Friday. So
Mhm.
Mobili is am I pronouncing that right again?
Bailey, yeah, Bailey,
Mobili.
yeah.
He's probably you got he's probably about number one at 168. In line for Alvarez, kind of getting in a place for his title shot now. So he's been impressive. He's 28-0, 23 knockouts, lost very few rounds throughout the course of his career. He's stopping guys, breaking guys down. Solid fighter. So I've been high on him for a while. So Selecki's been around. He's only lost, I believe, three fights, 33-3, to
Mhm.
guys like Demetrius Andrade,
Mhm.
Danny Jacobs, and then Pacheco was his last loss, which was the first time he was stopped in his career, which surprised me because body shot, one shot, did him in, I think it was the sixth round. But you talk about a usually very reliable, durable fighter, comes to fight, has been around, world class experience. And again, he's only lost to the best of the best.
Mhm.
So this is a test. This is a test for the Billy.
What do you think of Sulecki being a little bit older though? You say he got stopped against Pacheco. Does that hurt his durability?
It could. I mean, we just saw it recently, didn't we, with Cambosis? So a
Yeah.
guy that it was
Mhm.
normally durable who got stopped to the body,
Mhm.
that chink in the armor gets cracked. All of a sudden, maybe he's susceptible to another stoppage, especially at his age. So after that loss to Pacheco, I believe he came back with one win
Mhm.
over a nondescript opponent. Um, but listen, I mean, you still gotta rate him as a world class fighter. I mean, again, he's only got three losses to the cream of the crop type fighters. He's in with another one here. You got to lean towards mobility, but this is an interesting one to bet on because you got options. It's a 12-round fight.
Mhm.
So is the stoppage in the cards? Absolutely. This guy's got 23 stoppages in 28 fights, but he's also in there with a guy that knows how to go rounds, that's been in there with a good puncher like a Danny Jacobs and went to 12 rounds with him, no problem. And again, he just recently got stopped. They ruined the Pacheco fight. He was never in trouble. That was kind of a shock knockout. That body check came out of nowhere. Down he went, and he took the full 10 count. Could that have been a one-time thing? Sure. Or could again there be a chink in the armor and now he's susceptible to getting stopped? That's also a possibility. That's why a situation like this, you got to kind of make some creative bets. So I do think the potential is there for him to get stopped again. I would lean in that direction, but there is also a potential for him to go the distance. So what I like is for this fight to go more than 7.5 rounds, because I think if a stoppage does happen, it's going to happen in a breakdown fashion over the course of the second half of the fight. So I'm thinking the fight's going to go more than 7.5 rounds, and I'm also going to think that he's going to score a stoppage. He's going to get the knockout. So should that knockout happen in round nine, you're winning both ways, right?
Yeah.
Should he
Yeah.
not get the knockout, you still got more than 7.5 rounds, so you're going to win that bet. So at least you're covering your ass in that direction. And for the fight to go more than 7.5 rounds is only minus 115. So those odds aren't bad at all.
Mhm. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously the everybody who's at home watching, at this point, they know that we kind of like to lean towards prop bets and these outside the box bets because boxing betting is kind of black and white in terms of a lot of times there's a heavy favorite fighting a heavy underdog, you know, so
Yeah,
it's not there's not a lot of there's not a lot to grab there. There's not a lot of value in just
yeah.
being the favorite. So, you know, we personally like to discuss those prop bets, those tricky but crafty prop bets that get you better odds, especially if you mix them with some parlays. You know, you mix them with a couple of other scheduled events and whatnot, and they get you some really good odds. So that's what we're looking at here. Let me ask you something though, Tommy. Um, and Bealey, his pressure tends to be one dimensional. You know, how
Mhm,
crafty is Sulecki? Like, for example, Carlos Gongora had Bealey down. He dropped him,
mhm,
right? So,
mhm.
because he walked him into a shot. And Gongora, obviously, in the end, the pressure and the intensity of Bealey, because Bealey's a pretty intense pressure guy.
Yeah,
It tends to overwhelm crafty veterans who like to slow the pace down. But those crafty veterans who like to slow the pace down sometimes have a couple of different variables to their style that Billy doesn't. Billy seems to be pretty one-dimensional. Sometimes he walks in and can a prop bet look like, I don't know, and Billy going down at any point in the fight or no? Or
I
any
don't.
knockdowns?
Yeah, those prop bets are out there for him to, let's say, get off the canvas and win. You're gonna get plus odds on that, probably in the ballpark of like 250, maybe plus 300. Is it realistic? I
Is
mean,
Sulecki, does Sulecki have that kind of power? Is Sulecki crafty enough? Gongora was pretty crafty southpaw. He just didn't
yeah,
have the energy to keep up. Does Sulecki have that craftiness?
I lean towards no. I'm going to lean towards no. I think Select is going to be right in front of him all night. I mean, is he crafty? Yeah. Is he experienced? Yeah. Is he defensively responsible? Yeah. But I mean, you're not talking about a slickster. You're not talking about a guy that's going to be counterpunching, making him miss, making him pay all night. I think he's kind of going to be right there in front of him. More so at he's got to be 36 years old or so now.
Yeah.
So, like you said earlier, I mean, as far as who's going to win this fight, I think Billy. I don't think there's much doubt as far as who's going to win. But where's the value there at minus 1400? And I'll do parlays where I will also use a minus 1400, a minus 800, a minus 300. All of a sudden, you start getting yourself down to like maybe minus 250. It's not so bad when you think you got three locks, right? That's why I do various parlays. I do see, like I said, I do see the knockout happening here, but also I see it happening late. So should the knockout happen, let's say round three, all right, I'm going to lose the fight. Not going, I'm going to lose the parlay where the fight doesn't go more than 7.5 rounds, but I'm still going to win on the knockout. So I'm kind of
Mhm.
covering my ass in both directions where I'm guaranteed to win one or the other. But there's a strong probability that I'm going to win both because I do see the knockout happening late.
Oh, and also being crafty and understanding how to build your parlay is important too, right? You know, and
Yes.
understand what to put together. Because obviously when it comes to a parlay, one has to win the entire all the picks on that parlay. So the proper way to build a parlay also, is up to the individual. You know, what pick do you put with what other picks and what you keep away from certain kind of parlays. So that being that, you may want to take a little bit of riskier parlay. So you put the riskier ones off to the side, put more lock ones onto one parlay. So again, the art of building a parlay also comes down to the individual person. We and even us. I mean, we try to figure that out too. We just look at what's available out there and try to see the value in some of these picks, especially some of these prop bets. And then got to build a parlay off of that. And speaking of building a parlay, we got the rest of the schedule on this weekend as well. The Jake Paul card. I mean, the Jake Paul card. Jake Paul and Chavez is an interesting fight for various reasons. Um, you got an ex-world champion boxer. I think the world champion in the history of boxing, but nonetheless, um, the ex-world champion boxer. And Jake moving into that boxer status now, where he's fighting not just ex-boxers, but it's getting closer and closer to their prime. Obviously, a 60-year-old Mike Tyson was a very far away from his prime, but it was a
Yeah.
boxer as opposed
Yeah.
to MMA guys or basketball players, right? So little by little, Jake is progressing ever so slightly into that boxer realm, and picking guys off that where it's realistic and he makes that right choice. So far, they've only picked wrong once with Tommy Fury, and that was still a competitive loss.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is a great card too. We'll get into some of the other fights, but with Jake Paul and Chavez, what are the key things to keep in mind, really? 'Cause Chavez is so inconsistent. I feel like in order to figure him out, you also got to be a psychiatrist on top of a boxing analyst.
Yeah. Inconsistent is an understatement, especially the last 5 years. I mean, he hasn't done a lot the last 5 years, and this guy's been out of the ring more than he's been in it. But at the same token, Paulie, Jake, who on paper is a prospect, he's 11-1. I mean, he's not a contender, right?
No.
So the way you build a prospect is by the way you build a prospect and he continues to become a better fighter is by what? Activity. This guy fights twice a year. So all of his fights are big fights, but I don't see the progression with Jake Paul. I think we might even be at the ceiling already.
All right, well, let me ask you this. For you go from prospect to contender by starting to take on ex-champions, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's part of the progression as well. Obviously, again, you have the worst world champion in the history of boxing, but he's still an ex-world champion. And you have yes, he is faded, but he's younger than Tyson. He's a lot younger than Tyson, you know?
Yeah. But I also think that Jake was pulling his punch with Mike. I think that Jake would have been crucified had he stopped Mike Tyson. Crucified. So I think that Jake carried Mike a bit.
I thought Jake actually was a little bit worried about Mike's power and he was stepping out of range way too much. I didn't think he carried him at all. I thought he was worried and you could see him jumping out of range like 30 feet because I think the power of Mike, the aura and the potential of Mike hitting him with a dangerous shot had him so worried that he said, "Let me just play it as safe as possible." Mike has old legs. I'm gonna touch him and go, touch him and just go. And I think Jake got tired in that fight because of that, and that's one of the things that sort of is a wild card in this fight. Because as bad as Chavez is, Jake doesn't have the craftiness of an Anderson Silva who can sort of, styles making fights and count your aggression against you by walking you into certain traps. Jake is a hit you or he gets hit guy, and because he's been a better boxer than most of these other guys he's been fighting, or he's been a much younger boxer than most of these guys, than Mike Tyson, for example, he's been able to get away with it. But when you got a Chavez who, worse as he is, walks at you constantly, walks to you constantly, walks to you constantly, if you're not crafty to hold him down, because Chavez can take it, he walks you down, you can take, what happens? Is there a danger there for Jake to kind of get tired and then if he gets tired, Chavez, because Chavez does that whole front foot on head foot hitting your chest and just bangs away at you if you can't get away from him. Is there anything there?
There could be Paul. I mean,
Because
there's a
dude,
lot of
you're talking about something. Here's the thing: you're talking about something. The interesting thing is, you know, keep Chavez keeping you away requires combination punching, requires beating on him. Jake's typically doesn't put combinations together. He's liberally used one and two punches together, and he's loading up the second one if it's two. He's really loading up, so you can't really put anything behind that shot once you load up. You can load up all you want on Chavez. If he's got his gloves up and your head in his head in your chest, is he gonna feel it? Is he gonna go away? Is he gonna bang back away at you? That kind of fight, you're creating contact that's returning fire, and you're not creating contact that is gonna slow down anybody. I don't know. That's my thought. But then again, I think about again why you got to be a psychiatrist to run with Chavez here, because the Chavez also randomly quits too. You talk about the Fanfara fight. You talk about the where I was at the Fanfara fight. The crowd started pelting beers all over the place. I got hit with a beer when I was working for Showtime that fight. The Danny Jacobs fight. So, Jake lands one of these big shots he throws and he cuts Chavez, or he breaks a nose again. Does Chavez just say, "Forget it, I'm done"? What happened to you?
Well, that's the thing is with Chavez. Well, first let me talk about Jake. Here's the thing with Jake. Jake's an effort guy. Jake goes out there. He's gonna put in the work. He is a big puncher. He does have heart because we've seen him tire in every single fight.
Yeah.
He does not have a gas tank.
But he's been fighting guys who don't know how to take advantage of that fatigue. Now with Chavez, bad as he is, knows how to get to you.
Oh yeah, you make an excellent point there. There's no question about it. Jake Paul, if on a much lower level, of course, I'd almost compare him like Tommy Morrison in the sense that he's going to get tired. He's going to try and gut through it. He's gonna keep pushing, but he's absolutely going to be winded by round 3-4. That's going to happen. That's been his signature in every single Jake Paul fight. He really, with the exception of the early fights where he's fighting MMA guys like Ben, what's the one with the curly hair?
Ben Askren.
Askren. I mean, yeah, he blitzed him in the first round with the first big shot that he landed. But
Yeah.
anything that's gone a few rounds, this guy struggled with as far as his gas tank goes.
Yeah.
The attributes about Jake Paul that I have been complimentary about is obviously he's got good power. He's a big guy. He's got good power. I think he has the character of a fighter. I think that he goes out there, he pushes, he works hard in the gym. He lives the life of a fighter. Is Chavez a fighter anymore? That's what you really got to think about, Paulie. Is Chavez Jr. a fighter anymore? This guy has been beyond inactive. He hasn't won a significant fight in over 5-6 years at this point. He's been fighting in Mexico. gimme fights, and he managed to get beat twice in Mexico. And he should have been beat a third time before the guy whose name escapes you right now, who had looked good on paper, 34-6. This guy outboxed him for 10 rounds, and they still gave Chavez the decision. So he should have another
These
loss.
guys better than Jake or not?
Comparable. I think a couple of those guys Jake does beat. And even Chavez's last fight, 6-rounder against a former MMA fighter who's, again, name escapes me right now because Chavez has been fighting now.
Yeah, the Uriah Hall fight. That was
Uriah Hall
fight. Jake Paul card,
yeah.
and wanted to sort of build Chavez into a Jake Paul fight, but then he looked so bad that they just went away from it for a year, and then they refished Chavez back out.
Yeah. And Chavez only has been the 10-round distance himself, I believe, like once in the last 5 years. So, I mean, again, Chavez is doing more partying out of the ring than he has been. This isn't the same Chavez that we were watching 10 years ago. He's 35 years old.
But that's what I'm saying about you got to be a psychiatrist, because what if you get a Chavez that's trained? Obviously, his father's telling us that he's training, right? Didn't his father say, "Oh, he's just unfocused"? I mean, is his father? If his father's lying, then I will lose a lot of respect for his father too. Because his father doesn't have to say anything. You know what I mean? Instead of putting his own reputation on the line. But if Chavez Sr. is saying the truth and saying my son's the most motivated I've seen him, or something to that degree, which what he's saying, then doesn't Chavez become dangerous?
Absolutely, because
but if Chavez, if his father says these things and then Chavez shows up the same way he's been showing up, I don't know how anybody could still respect Chavez Sr. because he actually puts his own reputation on the line to lie for his son and to enable this kind of crap continually.
Yeah,
that's something to be looked into as well and to be considered as well when making this pick. That's what I mean. It's such a wild card here.
Yeah, but you know what? When we talk about actually making the picks on this fight, there's no value on Jake Paul in this fight. He's as high as minus 700 if you're talking about just the money line. Where Chavez on the money line is plus 475. So I mean, just from a betting standpoint alone, I mean, how do you not throw 20, $25 on Chavez just to take a chance?
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, I think this is a fight that more likely than not goes the distance. I see this going the 10-round distance.
Mm-hmm.
I do see it going the 10-round distance. So
even though Chavez hasn't gone the distance in a while and Jake also fades, you see nobody getting stopped in this fight. You see the fight.
I see it going 10-round distance.
Is it 3-minute rounds?
3-minute rounds. I mean, listen,
unless has Jake done 10 3-minute rounds?
I'd have to look into that. I believe. I
don't know. I believe only got 8-rounders.
I think they're all 8-rounders. Yeah.
Not against boxers.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Paulie, this might turn into a fun fight for 3 rounds and then just turn into an ugly wrestling snore fest for the next 5-6 rounds. But
even that, does Jake know how to wrestle in order to kill time? See, the craftiness of knowing how to get through rounds, becomes more apparent when you're fighting another boxer who knows how to not let you get through rounds, as opposed to when you're just fighting a random guy who doesn't know how to make that count against you, even if you're tired. That's where the danger of Chavez comes in here. He's the boxer who knows those subtle things as much as he sucks.
Yeah, no, listen, I know you've never been high on Chavez, and not that I was either. I mean, he had some decent wins early in his career. He was much younger.
But what he's capable of is still more than I think anybody else Jake has fought is capable of. Maybe Tommy, because Tommy was at least young and he had young legs and he could glide in and out of range. And Chavez didn't have great legs even when he was in his prime. But Chavez was an effort guy as well.
Yes, Chavez was an effort guy, but Chavez also, I don't know if I would say he put combinations together, put a lot of punches together. I would say that to a degree, earlier in his career, he was a volume guy. Kept his head in your chest and kept touching you, dig to the body a little bit. There was a lot of pressure.
And would walk to you, would put that mental pressure on you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Does Jake have the craftiness if that starts happening? Because you got to be crafty, to outbox that kind of pressure.
The thing is where, you think back to a fight like the Sergio Martinez fight, right? Where Chavez's pressure ultimately got to Sergio in the 12th and final round.
Yeah, we're not going to feel that Chavez. I agree. As the point I'm trying to make is Chavez a bit of a wild card here as far as maybe a live underdog. But even if one is to think that, you're not going to get that Chavez who fought Sergio Martinez, because he had to take a beating and still be in the fight late to do that. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if Chavez is able to take beatings anymore, because we saw him quit against Fonfara and Jacobs, and I don't know that he likes to deal with taking beatings anymore.
See, that's the thing. Again, Paul, this guy, has he been training besides this training camp? You think this guy's been training in between fights?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. Again, that's where it's how much stock you're gonna put into his father's word. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. So this is kind of one of those ones where I'm taking a little bit of a chance where I'm going to throw a little something on Chavez for the upset. I mean, how could you not at plus 450 with the
Mhm.
54-6 record? I mean, this guy's got over 60 fights. He's got a ton of experience. Four multiple world champions.
And you're gonna cover it with the fight going the distance? Because if Chavez for the upset, I would think it will be only by stoppage. I think if the fight goes a distance, that means Jake is doing what he's supposed to do in order to, beat this guy.
Makes sense. But Jake's been beaten on the cards before, right? He got beat by Fury
Yeah,
on the card.
yeah,
On
but that
cards.
was again against a guy with good legs too.
Yeah, I mean that's when but I don't want to get greedy because you know what? If he's a plus 475 on the money line,
Mhm.
Chavez, I get greedy. Those are insane odds. So
Mhm.
now, yeah, sure. If I put him down for a KO, maybe he's plus 600 or 700 odds. So sure, that could be a separate parlay where you're just going to put Chavez in for
Yeah,
the KO at plus 700, and then you parlay that with
yeah, that's real
Billy.
degenerate. That's real degenerate. Chavez for the KO. But you know what? It's kind of live. I mean, I mean, keep in mind it's still an underdog bet, so nothing's a lock when you can deal with underdogs. But it is a lie. It is kind of live. I mean, if you get a motivated Chavez, you could see a tired Jake phase. It'd never been those 10 3-minute rounds.
But again, Paulie,
Interesting.
to
But
cover
man,
my ass
then you
on
keep
that.
going back to the Chavez at Uriah Hall, and he sucked. Man, was he bad. He was actually
No,
so bad that they couldn't even do the fight. They had to postpone it for later and then recycle him now again.
and keep in mind that was a second recycle job because
Oof,
he was supposed to get beat by Silva. He was
oof.
supposed to get beat by Anderson Silva. Didn't let his hands go. Sat there just trying to walk Silva down, which wasn't going to work. Not throwing punches, not letting his hands go.
Oof. Yeah.
See, the thing with Chavez is, I'm sure we're in agreement on this one. I think Chavez always had a very reliable chin. Okay.
Yeah. But he
If,
quits now.
yeah. So if Jake is to, I find it hard in my head to see him, Jake scoring a knockout over Chavez. If Chavez is in any kind of shape, the shape that we
Yeah.
are to believe that his father
Yeah.
says that he's in.
Yeah. Agreed.
So again, this isn't what I'm going to go heavy on. I think there are other fights on this card that are actually more intriguing, even that are better fights. Obviously, like the Schofield Farmer fight, which we'll get into in a second. But in this particular fight, I'm going again with a couple of different parlays. I'm going to throw that Chavez parlay in for the hell of it. If I lose $20, but I have the opportunity at plus 475, or if I go your route and I say at plus 7 or plus 750 for the KO, I mean,
Mhm.
and I parlay that with a couple of small locks, I'm at plus 850.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't take that chance? $25, something like that. But I
Yeah.
do more realistically, I would back that up with the fight going the distance. I do feel that I just don't see a stoppage in the cards for this one. Even if Chavez is in any kind of shape, Chavez
Mhm.
always had a decent gas tank. But again, we're talking about the 35-year-old version of him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if he's coming to fight and coming to win, even if
Yeah.
that skill set is so eroded, I still don't see Jake denting that chin.
Yeah. And also you got to worry about even if you go with Chavez for the KO, does Chavez have the energy to go for the KO? What if he hurts Jake and then he can't finish him because he's a fat slob and out of shape,
Yeah,
With
no, these
that,
are all things to consider. That's why I said this isn't a fight that I'm going to go heavy on because this is a tricky one. It really is because Chavez is, like you said, a box of chocolates and
Yeah.
and a very unreliable fighter. And let's call it what it is, a career disappointment, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he was quite as bad as I know you were not high on him whatsoever.
I thought he sucked.
I hear you, bro. I rate the Andy Lee win though. I
If
mean,
you
to beat
if you
Andy Lee, a prime Andy
if you
Lee.
give him the losses he's supposed to get against Carlos Molina twice, Troy
Mhm.
Rowland, and countless others, he never even reaches contention to even fight those fights. So he would be a busted prospect who never made it, and he would have never even got those fights that where okay, then he's able to get the Andy Lee win. But I mean, he would have never even got there had he now robbed several different guys on the way up.
Yeah, you're right about that. Absolutely. I mean, politics definitely played a big part in his career and getting the opportunities that he got and keeping his record squeaky clean.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the undercard because this is some really interesting. This is a really interesting card, actually. Because whether you like Jake or not, he brings out the curiosity in his fights in his main event and brings out talking points, which obviously we spent a good amount of time just talking about that, and so that's the reason for that. But he tends to put on good undercards, man. It's not the first time Jake gives us an exciting undercard where underneath him, there's fights that we're really looking forward to seeing. We've seen Taylor Serrano on his undercards. We've seen several other good fights that I can remember on his undercards. This card is no different here. We got Schofield and Tevin Farmer. Really, really interesting fight here, as it's a step up for Schofield, who's been a good, solid prospect. But Farmer, kind of like the guy that won't go away, though. I mean, he gets beat, but he won't go away. And sometimes he gets beat in fights where maybe he didn't really lose, and he's still got that ex-world champion moniker, but his skill set in the ring still brings that element of danger, and we've seen that. He had Zepeda down in their first fight. Or at least hurt him. I don't know if he had him down or if he hurt him badly.
He did put him down, yeah.
Yeah, he put him
Yeah.
down, and he's very, very competitive against high-level opposition. Is Schofield that level of opposition? Is this one of those ones where we're going to find out just how good Schofield is, and where does he stand in this fight?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. See, here's some things to take into account. Farmer is always competitive. Nobody's blowing Farmer out. Back-to-back fights against Zepeda that you just mentioned. Both of those fights were extremely competitive. A lot of people thought he won the first. A lot of people thought he won the second. I mean, flip a coin. He might have deserved one of them. He showed a lot of. I thought the first fight was more competitive than the second fight. He showed a lot of character. Fighting for that injury in the second fight, and he made a late surge in the late rounds. But Farmer is not a guy, with the exception of Maritella, who in the previous fight, before the two fights with Zepeda, that was a pretty one-sided fight. And you're talking about a top contender there.
That's an IBF lightweight champion now, actually. Yeah, them after the Lomachenko retirement.
Yeah, but I think Farmer is the far more active fighter. Keep things in mind here. Schofield is coming off the longest layoff of his career. He was supposed to fight Shakur Stevenson. The day before the fight, he had to pull out with medical issues. Now he's on the longest layoff of his career. Farmer's in shape. Farmer's coming off back-to-back camps. The guy just fought in March against Zepeda in the rematch. And the first fight with Zepeda was only in November. So Farmer is definitely in shape. I think Farmer, and I've always felt this way, is an underrated puncher. On paper, you're looking at a guy that has over 35 fights, and he's got 8 knockouts. You say to yourself, this guy can't punch. Farmer can punch. Might not be a finisher, but Farmer can get your respect and get your attention. I honestly feel, unless something dramatic happens, I think that this is too soon for him. I really do. I think that this is going to be Farmer's night. I think Farmer is primed for an upset here. I think Farmer's going to go out there and try and disrespect this kid, give him a boxing lesson, and try and take him out. How good is Schofield? We're going to find out, because this is by far Schofield's biggest test.
So this is a weekend with some decently live dogs here. I mean, in terms we think, so is Farmer on points? What's that look like?
Again, Paulie, I'm not going to get greedy.
Can Farmer get a decision?
Can he get a decision?
Can the A side, can the B side get a decision? Because that's typically also a big problem in boxing that people don't realize is the odds in boxing matches made by the odds makers are not always to be considered just on stylistic matchups. The politics also are considered when it comes to making the odds. Can a guy get a decision? The reason you see Canelo Alvarez such a big favorite over some guys, even though they might be competitive, is because the odds makers know that guy's not going to get a decision if they go to distance anyway. So in this fight, which is very, very competitive, I don't know if Schofield is an MVP fighter, though. I think he's a Golden Boy fighter. So does that help Farmer's chances of getting an upset? I mean, on a Golden Boy card, Farmer did not get the Zepeda decision the first time around.
Sure, but
he might have deserved it. On this card, it's an MVP card. I think you correct me if I'm wrong. I think Schofield is a Golden Boy fighter on an MVP card. Does that mean Schofield is less protected on this card, and maybe if Farmer wins, he can get a decision?
One would think so, but listen, let's pull it back to the last fight. I was the last MVP card, which was Serrano Taylor 2, where I convinced myself that Serrano had all the advantage, because this, unlike the first fight, which was a matchroom card, which is going to favor Katie Taylor,
card, and Serrano will get the decision.
I thought anything close is going to go to Serrano in this one, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I thought Serrano honestly did enough to win that fight with Katie, the rematch. So the boxing politics, although they are something to be factored in, it's not always the end all be all. Now, with Schofield, again, I'm looking at, this is by far, I also can't get his last fight out of my head. Who was it that he fought? He fought ESPN fight. He got dropped in the 11th round in his last fight, Schofield. Name is escaping me. I'm going to pull it up real quick, Paulie.
What kind of style did he fight against? I don't remember.
Very aggressive. I'm expecting. By the way, I'm expecting Farmer to be aggressive. I'm expecting Farmer to try and walk this guy down, bring the heat behind his slickness. I don't think Farmer is looking to let the fight go to the scorecards. And again, like I said, Paulie, I think Farmer is a much better puncher than he gets credit for.
So you think there's a Farmer stoppage is worth a play here? Or did you just play it safe and just Farmer? Just Farmer's a pick at
Money
minus
line. Yeah, on
plus
money line.
at plus what?
At plus about 250.
No, not bad. I don't know, bro. It's an upset parlay being built here. Maybe Chavez and Farmer together. An upset parlay.
It's tough to get that image in my
Combine it
head.
with Mbili.
I mean, Schofield was dropped. Not only was he dropped in his last fight, but I don't know if you saw it. He went back to his corner when he sat on the stool pull and he fell off his stool.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see it, but I actually, now that you're saying it, I did hear it. I remember hearing people talking about that.
Badly hurt. Badly hurt. I mean, I had my money on Schofield in that fight. I was
and that's his last fight, and he's coming off a layoff after that fight.
Correct.
Yeah,
and he's fighting a guy in Farmer that is pissed off right now, coming off these back-to-back losses to Zepeda, in which he felt that he should have got one, if not both of them. He's sick of the politics of boxing. He's going out there, I think, to be aggressive.
That point, making some points, Tommy. You're making some points. All right.
So here's my thing. I don't see Schofield stopping Farmer. If you're going to be Farmer's a very difficult guy to stop. Very defensively responsible, very slick. Even at an older age, he doesn't use his legs quite as much as he used to, but he still has that great head movement. He's still very tough to catch with combination punches. You'll catch him one at a time, but that's about it. You look at a guy like Zepeda, who is a volume puncher and a southpaw, and he didn't put a lot of hands on Farmer as far as more so referring to the first fight. Second fight, Farmer had a little bit of an arm injury, so he touched him up a little bit more. But at no point was Farmer in danger of being stopped against Zepeda, who's got a lot of knockouts on his record and is a volume guy. And Farmer was able to mute that volume a little bit with his own offense and his own defense, actually. So I think that Farmer is beyond live in this fight, but I also think that should Schofield get the victory over Farmer, it's not happening via stoppage. So I'm giving different options on parlays today because, again, most people are not going to put just one parlay. That's it. I'm going to put my X amount of dollars. They're going to switch it up a little bit, which is what I do. I'll put out.
You like fight going the distance as one of the options here?
I do. But you know what? That's almost covering what I say is covering my ass in both directions. That should Schofield turn out to be the real deal, and maybe Farmer takes another loss here, it's not happening via stoppage. I don't see it happening via stoppage.
What about all this Farmer's an underrated puncher talk?
Well, there you go, Paulie. As far as the money line goes, that's why I'm saying I'm sticking with Farmer on the money line. So I'll put in two different parlays in that one with the possibility of Farmer winning, and then guess what? Again, he wins and he does so by decision. I'm going to win on both legs. But I'm going into both. I'm putting those bets in with plus odds on both legs, regardless.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we got another fight on this card, man. Right? We're going to be talking about Julio Ramirez against Doros. Doros. Some people think he's seen his best days behind him, but he was a very, very dangerous. I can remember him in the World Boxing Super Series in the cruiserweight tournament. It was a very, very good fighter. That was a super competitive cruiserweight tournament. It had guys like Murat Gassiev and Alexander Usyk and who was the other guy that was also a couple other guys that were also very good in that cruiserweight tournament. A lot of Eastern Europeans there, man. They were Maris Bradis and so on and so forth. That was a great cruiserweight tournament the World Boxing Super Series put together. And he comes from basically that generation. What does Doros have left to test Ramirez? Can he win the fight? No.
Tall order. Doros was a very good fighter, but the fights that you were referring to were quite some time ago. Fought for the world title twice. Those were his only two losses, I believe. I think he has two losses. They both one was via decision. One was actually a 12th round. He got stopped in the 12th round.
Was it against Gassiev?
Yes. Yeah. Who's a huge puncher, by the way.
Yeah. Gassiev lost the final to Usyk in that tournament.
Yes, and he got stopped in the 12th round. Had a very competitive fight. He was competitive on those scorecards. But now I think he's somewhere in the ballpark of 38, 39 years old. Hasn't been fighting.
So you're looking at that Sullivan Barrera type of fighter where late in his career he's beatable, and we saw him get beat. Like I remember Sullivan Barrera getting stopped on Pro Box by Hot Rod Kaladzic, after being very capable throughout his whole career, losing to guys like Bivol and getting stopped by Kaladzic. Is Doros at that point here with a guy like Ramirez, who certainly can hurt you and stop you if you're not of that level?
I don't know if he's at the point of getting stopped, because I'll tell you, as Ramirez has gone up in weight, now he's a cruiserweight. I think he's kind of settled in at cruiserweight. You're seeing him win a lot of decisions now. Guy could he be the best cruiserweight in the world? I mean, that's between him and Apataya. And that's a hell of a fight to see if it happens. But I think Ramirez has kind of settled into that role of a decision, a 12-round fighter. This guy's been going 12 rounds on a consistent basis. Very good boxer, southpaw, good body puncher. He does everything well. I don't think he's a devastating puncher, though. Not the puncher that he was at 168 pounds which was years ago. He's not scoring the stoppages the same way. He's also in there with a guy that's a huge puncher, so he's going to have to be defensively responsible, not going to open up the way he might usually. I see. This is a pretty clear bet for me. I see Ramirez winning a 12-round decision.
Ramirez 12-round decision.
Yeah.
And those are the main fights on these cards, right, man? I mean, we that's pretty much all of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to touch on Holly Holmes is back, which is
Holly Holmes is back. That's true. Yeah, she's
as far as
boxing.
I know,
Back boxing. You know.
Yeah, there's not a line in that fight, or there was not a line as of last night. Holly Holmes is fighting
She's probably minus $1 million, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's in there with a girl that's 10-0 with 1 KO.
Yeah.
So I'll tell everybody out there that tunes in, should Holly Holmes pop up on your sports line, I don't know what those odds are going to be. I would lean towards Holmes on a 10-round decision all day.
Really?
Yeah.
No stoppage.
No. This girl can fight a little bit. She's 10-0. She's not a big puncher. Remember that females fight 10 2-minute rounds. Yeah. Remember that Holly hasn't been in a boxing ring in over a decade.
Yeah.
She's 43 years old, Paulie. So should Holly Holmes pop up, I would expect her to win a decision.
All right, man. What, any other fights? I mean, I feel like it's such a packed weekend of boxing.
There's a couple more. I mean, we're not going to touch the Wilder fight.
Yeah, there's a Wilder fight. Yeah, I mean, you don't know. I mean, Wilder's supposed to beat this guy. He's such a hopeless guy, but Wilder's the kind of guy who also hit him on the chin. At this point, he could go. So
no value there. Minus 1,400.
Maybe the fight not to go 2 rounds. Somebody goes out.
Yeah, well, my luck would go the distance. But Pascal.
Jean Pascal.
Pascal.
Pascal and Marcus Brown are fighting in Montreal this weekend, right?
Yeah. So
not against each other, but they're in 2 different opponents. Against 2 different opponents.
Marcus Brown is actually the co-main event. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to get a couple of wins.
Pascal and Brown rematch.
Yeah, Mikel Kalak, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the one that
favorite over Pascal.
Yeah, he's about a minus 350, I want to say. 2 losses. He's a Polish fighter, 27-2, I believe, 21 knockouts. He can punch. He's tall. He's rangy. I think. Listen, Pascal fighting now basically at heavyweight. I mean, this fight's going to be around 200 pounds. Pascal's a 5'10", muscle bound. Yeah, absolutely. Million miles on him.
Best days are 168, 175 at most.
Yeah. And this guy is 6'3", Paulie. 6'3", a lot of volume, very awkward style. Again,
I can remember working the Fenlong Mang fight with Pascal where he got the upset, but it was very close, and he looked like he had great legs.
Paulie, Pascal's last fight, he needed 10 rounds. The 10th and final round, he scored a stoppage victory in a fight that not only did he lose every single round of that fight, but his opponent had never been past. He fought a 6-round fighter. His opponent was whatever he was, 15-0. He had never been past the 6th round. I don't know if he was ever scheduled for past the 6th round. He was a 6-round fighter, and he handily was beating Pascal. Gas tank went low, and he ended up getting an arm injury, actually. Pascal pulled the rabbit out of the hat in the 10th and final round. So, I mean, listen, Pascal doesn't go away, but at 42 years old, at this point, with a million miles on those tires.
Tough, yeah. All right. Oh, well, that's this week's Tommy and Paulie's Big Fight Forecast. I mean, we hope you guys enjoyed our discussion. Remember that all these discussions are strictly for recreational purposes, and there is no betting or gambling advice being given here. It's just recreational discussions, recreational purposes about these topics, and we hope you guys enjoyed it. We know we enjoy it when we talk about numbers and we talk about the gambling odds and whatnot. But go ahead, Tommy.
Let me just say in closing, just for the bettors out there, listen, diversify your parlays. I'm giving a lot of different options out there, but these are the realistic options. These are the most realistic options with the favorable odds. So don't just put 1 or 2 parlays out there. You know what? Chop it up a little bit. Throw a few different.
That's what you like to do. That's what That's what
I mean, Paulie, a prime example is last week's show I talked about the Brian Norman Jr. fight, and I was concerned with this Sasaki, was it?
Yeah, Sasaki.
Sasaki. I'm sorry, Sasaki. I was concerned because this guy, again, was a dangerous puncher that was going to bring the fight to him. And I said, this fight can go in a lot of directions, but ultimately I see this fight ending in a stoppage. I see Norman winning the fight most likely. And if he does so, it is most likely by stoppage. So I gave you 3 very realistic scenarios, and Norman ended up scoring the knockout in the 5th round. So if you would have bet those in 3 different legs of a parlay, you're winning on all 3 of those legs because it went exactly how it was supposed to go. Where the only way you're going to get hurt is somehow, some way, should that fight go the distance and Sasaki get that decision over Allen, which I did not see in the cards. I had said last week there is 0 chance, even in Japan, this guy was going to beat him on the cards. So that's why you want to diversify your parlays and give yourself different options.
Yeah, and that's our discussion for this week, man. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next week on Tommy and Paulie's Big Fight Forecast. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the fights this weekend.